Here we are in Yonei Sefirah Omer. What is the yesod of these Yemei Sefirah Omer? Clearly one of the fundamental principles, something that is outlined and elaborated upon, not only in the Zohar Kodesh, Kisvei Arizal, and so many other sources. These are the days of Achana from Matan Torah. Why didn't Hashem give us the Torah the second we left Mitzrayim? And Moshe Rabbeinu has already told the momentous encounter, the burning bush, to have the Naisi al Harazet. It's all about being Makabel the Torah. So the second we get out of Mitzrayim, give us the Torah. Torah is what we were holding a mem tes shari tuma. Halolo ovdi avodah zarah, halolo avodah. You have to be mechenes atzmachem. You have to first make yourselves klei kibul, worthy receptacles of receiving the Torah Kedosha, and only then am I going to give it to you. That's why many Heilige Sfarim, the Chidon, so many others talk about how the 49 days correspond to 7 times 7. A metaphor that likens this period of counting to the Sefirah Lo Shivas Yamim. When it comes to these Zayin Akiyim, you have to count 7 days in order for a woman to be pure, ready for her husband. So too, if we want to be ready, we bechinas the Kala Klal Yisrael, to be ready to be wed to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, bechinas the Chosan. We need what? First 7 times 7. Shiva Shavuos Tismalach, a week corresponding to each day of the Zayin Akiyim. That's an Indian in V'Safra. This is an Indian of Shiva Shavuos Tismalach. That's the Chidon, so many other Sfarim, and that's why Rabbi Kohler, Mishnah Sabarin, and so many other Musa Sfarim talk about how this is the Tkufa Misayemas to work more than ever on the Memches Kenyanei Torah. You turn to Perek Kinyan Torah, to the final chapter in Perkei Avos, to Perek Vav Mishnah Vav. And there we have outlined the Memches Kenyanei Torah, the 48 gates of wisdom, as from Noach Weinberg. I would expound upon, but it's the idea of what? In order to receive the Torah, you first have to be mechenes atzmcha. You have to prepare yourself adequately, and especially since it all comes down to the period of the Achana. So you have to cleanse yourself, you have to purify yourself, and you work in the Memches Kenyanei Torah. Day number 49 explains Rabbi Kohler and Mishnah Sabarin as the day you chazer all the Memches Kenyanei Torah, and then and only then you're ready to receive the Torah on day number 50.
Tavdun.
When it comes to noon, when it comes to number 50, excellent Tisru Chamishim Yom, and that's how you're going to get ready for it. So Rabbi say we have a very well-known B'nai Yissaschar. B'nai Yissaschar, one of the most gewaltige Sfarim out there, and my favorite Hasidic Sefer, the Heilige Din of a Rebbe. And the Din of a Rebbe writes in his Mamari Chodeshir and Maimer Gimel, writes the B'nai Yissaschar, we have 49 days of Sefirah Omer separating the Yantav Pesach and the Yantav Shavuos. These 49 correspond to Gematria Leiv Tov. Leiv is Gematria 32, Tov is Gematria 17. Adds the B'nai Yissaschar, what's the day that stops the Misas Talmidei Rabbi Akiva when you get to day 33, which is after you have the Leiv and you're masaking the Leiv, and then you're ready for the final 17 days. Tov, Gematria 17, the day that links the Leiv, the first 32 days, with Tov, the remaining 17 days, is day 33. That is Lag BaOmer Gal Einai Ve'abita. That's the Zman to be masakein Alpi, the Prichonosh, the famous Kasha. What are we celebrating? We lost all the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. This begins the Zman HaTikun, when you connect the Leiv to a Leiv Tov. And that's the Tikun of the Kovad, writes the B'nai Yissaschar. Leiv is Gematria 32. And Kovad is Gematria 32. They were lo nagu Kovad zelazeh. You got to give the Leiv. You got to give your Leiv to Yenim, to somebody else. Only when you give your Leiv to somebody else, then you're masaking the lo nagu Kovad zelazeh. So you need to have the Leiv and the Tov. And we start out to the Chumash. Now, Rabbi say it's a remez that appears in so many Sfarim. Now, what's the first os of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the base? And what's the last os? Le'enei Kol Yisrael. We end with a lamed. Now we have a posik in Mishlei Perek Dalit, a Mishnah in Avos Perek Vav Mishnah in Gimel. Ein tov la Torah Gemara Brachos Taf Hey as well. Ein tov la Torah Shinamar Ki Lekach Tov Nasati Lechem. Torah Sialto Zovu. So the Torah be'etzem is a chetza of Tov. Ein tov la Torah. This is the greatest gift. Ki Lekach Tov Nasati Lechem. The chetza of Torah Seinu HaKadosh is the ultimate expression of Tov in this world. And what are the bookends of the Tov of Torah? The Beis Abereshis, with the Lamed of the Einei Kol Yisrael, that's the Leiv, Tahaina, what do we have? You open up the Chumash, and what do you have right here? You have a Leiv Tov. The Torah Kedosha starts with the base, ends with the Lamed. It's all about the Leiv. And inside, between the base and the Lamed, they serve as the figurative bookends to encapsulate and encompass therein all of the Tov of Ein Tov Ela Torah. And that's the Leiv Tov. You got it right here. Rabbi Akiva, the Av of Torah Shvapet. But now it gets even better. Count 32 words from the beginning of Bereshis. Bereshis, Bar Elokim Hashemayim V'Haaretz. Count 32 from the beginning. And what do you think word 33 is? Word 33 is Tov. And how Geshmak? You get to what? Posik Dal in Bereshis, Vayar Elokim Hashemayim Ki Tov. Tov is the 33rd word in the Chumash. What? The 33rd day in the Omer, Lamed Gimel Ba'omer, links together the first 32 Gematria Leiv, the first 32 words of Bereshis, and it connects it with the 33rd word, which is Tov, at the beginning of the final 17 days of Lag Ba'omer. That's a Leiv Tov, and that's the Tikkun for the Lo Nagu HaKavod Zelazeh. What is this idea all about? It's the Feiner is Eytan, so afterwards, Pinchas Freeman and his Sefer Kedai Yerushim and Yoni Lag Momer echoes this same idea, and that is, and with Siyat and Shmaya, maybe we'll be Meisif a little bit more tonight as well. We have a Mishnah Yadu and Pirkei Avos. Now let's keep in mind, the Gemara went out of its way in Yavamas Beis to tell us when did they die. They died me Pesach Ad Atzeres. Now really they died Pesach Lag Momer. But l'chayra, what does the Gemara want to clearly convey? That the period of Pesach to Atzeres is a zman of working on the Leiv Tov. Now I know it's a 49 days. They were supposed to die over 49 days. They Pesach v'Ad Atzeres they died. It happens to be they stopped dying but just by Lag Ba'omer. That's when Kolomate, that's when they ceased to perish. Aber Lamaisa, the Gemara's choice wording is what? The terminology is Meisumi Pesach Ad Atzeres. Why? Because their kilka was Lo Nogu Kavod Zelazeh. And it's man when you have to give your Leiv Gematria Kavod, and it's got to be not Stam a Leiv but a Leiv Tov. Leiv Tov Gematria 49, because in 49 days from Pesach to Atzeres you have to be masaking the Leiv Tov, and that's what this Kufa is all about. What do we have in the Mishnah in the second parak of Avos? Keeping in mind that the Ikar Minhag Klal Yisrael, for many reasons, and yes, we extend the limit of Pirkei Avos into the Chodshei HaKayitz, but the Ikar Minhag of learning Pirkei Avos is when? Between Pesach to Shavuos. Why? What's Pirkei Avos? This is our compass. Gemara in Bava Kama, Laman Aman Alf, you want to be Mad the Boy, Mevi Chassid, you want to say, you have to learn according to Amar Yamar, you got to learn Avos. This is the foundation, the Yesod, the basis of all, and Yonim especially Beinanim L'Chavero, and that's where it's got to start. So let's go to Pirkei Avos. Pirkei Avos learned Pesach Ad Atzeres as a tikkun for the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva who died me Pesach Ad Atzeres. So let's go to Yedua the Mishnah. We're holding in the second parak. Rabbi say where Rabbi Yochanan Zakai had 5 Talmidim, and Hayamon Ben Shimchan, and he would sing the praises, extolling the various virtues, all the milas. And then we get to what Amar Lahem. Parak Beis, some have Mishnah Ches, Mishnah Tes, Amar Lahem. Tzuru, go out into the world and see. Eisui Derech Yeshara. What is the upright path that a person should cleave to? You should cling tenaciously and steadfastly onto. Rabbi Elazar says, "Ayin Tov." Rabbi Yeshua says, "Charma Tov." Rabbi Yossi says, "Shochin Tov." Rabbi Shimon says, "Rosa Nolad." It's Shimon ben Nesanel. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. That's Elazar ben Arach says, "What Leiv Tov?" Amalem Rabbi Yochanan Mazaka responds, "Roni is different." Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. Shebachlal devar of devrechem. You know what it comes down to? There are a lot of milas you can have. You can have an ayin tova, you could be a chaver tov and have a shochin tov, and you could see haros and olad. Acharika chosakol. Here's the nasi, the abbas and the golden hador. And the golden hador is telling us, Rabbi, go out into the world. I'm going to let you know who is right, who I feel is right, and who is that? Ruani is different. If you have a leiv tov, you got everything. So if we're going to pick one midah, then encompasses therein all the other midas taivas. It's what? It's a leiv tov. And then the soundtrack can I get? Amrulem Tzuruezi Derech Roshi Yischakim and Adam. Elazar says Ayin Ra, Rabbi Yeshua Chavara, Shachin Ra, Lo Avein Mashalem comes along. Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, as we would expect, Alev Ra, and as we would and Nachamol expect. Amrulem Rabbi Yochanan Zakai. to all the other Talmidim. Roni is Dibri Loz V'Nerach Shemachal Devrav Derechem. So here you have the Nasi, the Abbas, and he's telling us, Chevra, go out into the world. You can't always work on everything. The same way the Marshal learns, the Gemara in the Yanamakas, 613 mitzvahs. I can't focus simultaneously on 613. David says, focus in these 11. Through these 11, you'll get to the rest. Focus, Micha, on these 3. Through these 3, you get to the rest. B'chavokuk, Hamidan Alachas, and Beis Dalet Tzad, so Yichya, you work in Amunah. That'll be the bedrock, and through that, you will get to all the remaining 612 mitzvahs. Here Yochanan Mazakeh says, V'chal Devar V'Rechem, go out into the world. I'm going to give you the one midah. There's one midah to work on. What's that? A leiv tov. Now, this is Rabbi Yochanan Mazakeh. The Feiner is why you see so much Shabbat the leiv tov. Because Rabbi Yochanan Mazakeh, the Feiner is the one who is leading Klal Yisrael b'shas churban ba'yasheni. He is the one, the whole Sugyan Gittin and Zayin, Tainli Yavna V'Chachamel. He's the one who was leading Klal Yisrael when we lost the Churban B'Yasheni. Now, why did we lose Churban B'Yasheni? You might test on base because the sin is Schina, because of the Kilko, not Bein Adam the Makom, the Kilko Bein Adam the Chavero. What are we supposed to be working on now? Comes along the B'nai Yissaschar and his Mamori Chodeshi or Maimer Gimel. The 49 days of Sefirah Somer are Gematria Leiv Tov, 32 and 17. Why? Because this is the Tkufa to work on a Leiv Tov more than any time. Avada. We lost the Churban B'Yasheni because of what? Because of Sin Eschina, because we broke down that Musig of Leiv Tov. Rabbi Yochanan Mazakeh says, Rabbi said we got to rebuild the world. How are you going to rebuild the world? B'chal Devar Derechem. You can't work on every midah. You read a Sedora Savannah not. But you know what you can work on? Those of Menarach, get it right. I'll work on a leiv tov, and through the leiv tov, you'll get through everything else. And Mela, it's very geschmack. Rabbi Yochanan Mazakeh is the Bala Memra, who is so much shabech the leiv tov. He has such a leiv tov. He's the one in Brochas Daf Yud Zayin and Aleph that's makdim shalom afilu the nachri shebeshuk. And Rabbi said, can you imagine what we're talking about here? We're talking about the Gonad or the Nasi, who is leaving his house. When he's walking down the street, he is makdim shalom aleichem, shalom, shleimus, giving shalom afilu the nachri shebeshuk. He is the one to say, B'chlal Devar Derechem Leiv Tov is what it's all about. He's all about what? He's leading Klal Yisrael. When the Igvis the Churban, which is losing the Beis HaMikdash because of Sin Eschina, he represents the Shas HaScholas HaTikun, the Binyan Mechodosh. He is saying, Klal Yisrael, you want to rebuild the third bias, it's got to be rebuilt on what? Leiv Tov. And about it, because we see what? That Bein Pesach Haretzeres. When we want to be Makabel the Torah, we want to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the bechina of the Beis Hamikdash. Em Yom Shechor Beis Hamikdash. Ein La Kershu Chol Adal Arama Shalocha Bilvad Brachas Chesam and Aleph, and we bring down the Shechina Ayidei the Torah Brachas Davavam and Aleph. V'Manayin Shafilu Echad Sheyoshi Vosik B'Torah Sheshchina Imo Shenem Chomokim Sha'aska Shemiya V'Lechraticha. You bring the Shechina down Ayidei the Torah, but the Shechina is not coming down if you don't first and foremost work for what? For 49 days. Kamacho Leiv Tov and Nesman Achana. Our Rebbe Kibbutz Talmidim died, but Davka counts in the reka, the backdrop, the setting of the Zman. When in order to be makabel the Torah Mechadash, you have to work on Tikkun Amidus, the same way Chaim Vital writes in Shari Kedusha. And Chelak Aleph and Perak Beis up to Chaim Vital. Amidus are so important, they're so fundamental. Medrash in the beginning of Vayikra Rabba, Derech Eretz Kol Melo Torah. What's the pshat? What's the amka? Zok Chaim Loshin, Chaim Vital. Again, he elaborates Alpi Kabbalah, different aspects of the neshama, but the idea is, you know why midas are not on the pages of the Torah? Because if the Torah Kedosha told us, don't be a Baal Gaiva, don't be a Kason, you'll say, okay, this is a law in the Torah, and this is a law in the Torah. If you'll say it's a mitzvah to be nice, not only a mitzvah to actually be mevakar, to do nice chasadim, and then you might say it's all on par, it's all the same, it's all on equal footing. No. The Torah Kedosha is letting you know, if you don't have Gemidas, don't even open up the book. Don't even turn the pages. If you don't have Derech Eretz, that's Kon Mel Torah. That's the prerequisite. That is the basic criteria. Without Torah, don't even bother opening. I can't put it on the page of Chumash because you're not even Zeicher to be a clay cable on the most basic, minimal level of opening up my book, God says, if you didn't make yourself a worthy receptacle. Without Midas, there's nothing to talk about. The Torah falls through the cracks, through the wayside. As a Chaim Shulavitz is Marach and Sichas Musar. When Moshe Rabbeinu got angry, what was the choice terminology of Chazal? Chachmasim is Stalem It's not that he forgot it, it's mistalik. It just falls out because you lose that clay kibul. If you're a kasan, if you have B'midas, there's nothing to talk about. You want to get the Torah? What do you work on these 49 days? Kamacho Leiv Tov. Torah Kenosha. What's the beginning of the Torah? When you open up the Torah there, since you worked on your Midas, the first message the Torah is going to hint to before it introduces the word Tov is going to give you 32 words. Gematria Leiv, and the 33rd word is going to be Tov. The beginning of the Torah links together the first 32 words Leiv with the Tov. That's how you get the ball rolling. That's how you start the Torah Kedosha. It's got to start with Leiv Tov. And who tells us that? Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Now a little cherry on top. The Gemara says in Maseches Brachos Chav Ches Amud Beis, at comes the end of the life of Yochanan Zakkai, who dedicated his life to being mesaking the sinas chinam, to being makdim shalom afiyu nachish v'shuk. He's leading us out of the Churban Bayesheni, and it's b'shas b'tiraso. And Nichnasu Talmidim Levakro, it's his final illness. His Talmidim come in to visit him, and they have a nice, fascinating dialogue. And how do they introduce themselves? Amrlo Talmida, Ner Yisrael Aman HaYemini Patash HaChazak. Ner Yisrael Aman HaYemini Patash HaChazak. 3 descriptions. Now we explained in the past, we have Aman HaYemini. What's that? The famous Gra. What's Aman HaYemini? You have 2 Amudim of the Sefer Torah. When you get to V'zos HaBracha, the end of the Torah, then you have all the Torah scrolled on the right Amud. So since Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai is the one that took Chesam and Aleph and Kol Torah Kula, so he's referred to writes the Gra Aman HaYemini. He finished everything. He finished Kol Torah Kula. He's got it all what? On the right Amud. That's Aman HaYemini. Now, if that's his Iker Nakuda, Sukkah Chesam and Aleph says the lowest of the 80 Talmidim in Hillel was that he learned Kol Torah Kula, he had it on his fingertips. Ad Kedei Kach. What's the memra that he says himself in Pirkei Avos right before in Perek Beis? He says, "Em lamata Torah harbe al taksik toivel atzucha ki lekach no tzarta." And the Mefarshim explain why is that his memra? Because he learned Torah harbe and he wasn't maksik toivel atzucha. Why? Because you understand that's his tafkin. His ikar gadlus is what? His spitz gadlus is Aman HaYemini. If there's one trait you're going to highlight about Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai when you go on a journey through Shas, it's that he finished Kol Torah Kula and he's the Baal HaMemra in Pirkei Avos. The only thing he has to share with us, and Lamata Torah Harbe, so based on the Gra, the first thing the Talmidim walk in, they should say, Rabbi, Aman HaYemini, you teach us Torah. You are the Aman HaYemini. It's not the first one, it's the second one. Why? The Feiner is you know why? Because Derech Eretz come to Torah. Because before you can have a musig of Aman HaYemini, you know why he was the Aman HaYemini? Because he was Makdim Sholom Afilu Nachish V'shuk. He was the Ner Yisrael. What's Ner? You light the neighbors in your home for what? Shabbos Chav Gimel Beis, to bring Sholom into the bias. Who brings Sholom into the streets? And he's Makdim Sholom Afilu the Nachish V'shuk the Gola Dor Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. And what is Eish? Fire. Fire writes the Shlah. Eish is Rosh Tevis, Ahava and Shalom. Ahava and Shalom, Eish. That is the Yesod of the Ner Yisrael. Ner Yisrael is Yisrael. Yesh Yisrael, the one who brings all the Torah together. Ner, the candle, Eish. Whatever you throw into fire becomes part and parcel of the fire itself. Our kids in camp sit in a semicircle, in a full circle around the campfire. A romantic dinner between husband and wife. Everything comes around candlelight. Shalom Bayis comes into the house. Fire brings its marbet and gender shalom. So what's it doing first? The Feiner is you know what? Because Derech Eretz come to Torah. Because you can't have a Torah. He's only the Aman HaYemini. Because it was Mavusas and Miyusad predicated on the fact that he personified the Ner Yisrael, who brought shalom to Klal Yisrael, who was masaking the tkufa of sinas chinam that brought about Churban Abayis. He is Ner Yisrael only because he's the Ner Yisrael who brings us all together and brings the shalom. Only because of that he's Aman HaYemini. Oh, he's celebrating Lag BaOmer. Our Rabbi Shimon, but he had 5 Talmidim. Rabbi Shimon is the fire. We have a big Madura, a big yard side candle for a huge lave. But we're getting ready for the Torah. You can't get ready for the Torah on by side until you first celebrate the one who represented Eish, the Hemshech Rabbi Akiva's V'hatu Kamaycha, who was Novei Kovid. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai is only Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai because he's the Ner Yisrael. Before he's the Aman HaYemini, you can't get ready for Matan Torah until you celebrate Rabbi Shimon Ben Yochai, the huge Madura, the huge candle, the huge Ner Yisrael, the huge Eish that brings us all together as we dance together around the Madura, celebrating that huge gargantuan neshama, a big yahrzeit candle for a Leiv Tov, Reb Shimon Ben Yochai. Only when we dance together, we come together like Maimer. Now we're ready for the final 17 days. Ain't Tov Torah. You have the Ner Yisrael. That's a Lag Bomer. The feeding is tied to you now and only now. Are you ready for the Aman HaYemini? Let's be Makabel Torah Chodosh. Have an awesome night and a great rest of the week. And